Hey, what's going on, everybody? You know who it is. It's your boy, Algebra, sitting here with Algebra Baby. He's hanging out in his little cutie pie shirt, um, not feeling well, so we had to stay home again. We're going to the doctor in a little bit, so hopefully they can tell us uh, how to make him feel better. Anyway, I'm going to talk to you today about the zero product property. That's what the ZPP stands for. As we get this thing going, it should be a pretty simple concept. You know how to do every single piece of this already. We're just going to put it all together. We're going to talk about equations instead of expressions. So the zero product property, pretty simple idea. It says product multiplication automatically. Zero, we mean that it's going to have to equal zero. And so the basic idea is that anything times zero automatically equals zero. Period. It's never going to change. And that is a fundamental piece of this. Anything times zero equals zero. And so conceptually, you know everything already. This is not a new idea to you. The fact that anything times zero is going to equal zero just means that if I tell you 5 times x equals zero, you know that x has to be zero. It's not going to change. You already knew that. It doesn't matter what I give you in this problem. I could say 4 times y equals 0. You know that y has to equal 0. Period. There's no other option. There's no other way for you to multiply something, get 0. It has to show up there. Now, the question is, what happens if I give you something that has a little bit more complexity, such as 4 times x minus 3 equals 0? Well, last time it was just the x that had to be 0. But if I plug in a 0 here, this is what it will look like. And unfortunately for you guys, that's not 0. Now, I know my main man George has already figured out what the answer is supposed to be. He said it's not supposed to be that x is 0 this time. X has to be 3. And I said, why, George? And George responds, because 3 minus 3 is 0. So you're telling me that it's not just the x is 0. You're telling me that x minus 3 has to be 0. The whole thing. And that's a really big deal. When we say that anything times 0 equals 0, we're talking about any factor. The factor is that thing. And sometimes that means we're going to have parentheses. The whole parentheses has to be 0. So here we go. Let me give you another example. If I give you an equation that says 6 times x minus 5 equals 0, what I'm telling you now is that this whole thing, x minus 5, must be equal to 0. And if that's the case, you can solve it for x. X has to be 5. But then somebody else has the brilliant question. I don't know which one. It's probably going to be a Libby question this time. Libby would say, well, how come I can't do 6 times x minus 5 equals 7? Well, then it wouldn't be the zero product property, Libby. 0 means it has to equal 0. That's going to be our first step in every equation that we do for the rest of this chapter. We're going to have to make it equal 0 before we can do anything else. Another example. 2 times x plus 11 equals 0. So again, the concept is the inside of this thing, this whole thing must equal 0. And so I can set it that way and solve. -11. Done. Oh, but Mr. Somerville, what do I do if there's more than one parentheses? Okay, that's a good question, Ty. Here we go. X minus 5 times x plus 11. Does it matter which one of these is 0? No, it doesn't matter to me. So why don't you just give me two answers? There's two x's. We should have two answers. This one could be 0, or it could be that one. Since it doesn't matter, just tell me both. Your final answers are x is 5 and x is 11, -11. On your own this time. 2x minus 7 and 3x plus 5 equals 0. That multiplication says that it equals 0. That means that one of those factors, if not both of them, have to equal 0. The whole idea, something has to equal out to be 0. It might be the blue one, it might be the yellow one. So set them both up and solve. Two answers because there's two x's. Each parenthesis completely on its own has to be equivalent to 0. So how is this all related to what we've been doing? Well, the basic concept is this. Every factoring question was supposed to end up with parentheses. If I give you something that says x squared plus 13x minus 30 equals 0, you saw a trinomial in the beginning. And because you saw a trinomial, your first instinct was to factor it, hopefully. As many problems as we've done, that should be like a second nature thing to you at this point. Factor it, meaning turn it into parentheses, the same steps as we always do. First step, it's in standard form. Second step, I put A and C together for -30. I make a list based on -30 now. 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, or 5 and 6. Some people are going to make the mistake of choosing 3 plus 10. 3 plus 10 gives me positive 30. I want to use a 15 and -2 instead. This is what it's going to look like. X squared plus 15x minus 2x minus 30 equals 0, still there. Hasn't changed anything that we've done before, so we might as well keep going. Split it. If you're using the box method, that is completely okay. Because at the end of this problem, we should all end up here. But we have x minus 2 and x plus 15. The new stuff says take this thing and this thing and solve each one of them for 0. It's not good enough to factor and stop. Now we have to factor and solve. Your answers are 2 and -15. Another example for you. 5x squared plus 20x equals 0. This is only two terms, so it's not necessarily the same type of situation as what you had before with a trinomial ending up with two different sets of parentheses, but you do know that it has a greatest common factor, and the greatest common factor is 5x. Take that, put it on the outside. X plus 4 is left over. How many x's are in this question? 2. And because there's two x's, there should be two answers. And those two answers should be coming from the first one is the outside. The second one is the inside. 5x equals 0. That's easy. X has to be 0. And x plus 4 equals 0. Again, easy. This time x is negative 4. Those are your two answers. Done. So what we're really doing with this ZPP is not actually changing anything that you've done up to this point. We're just adding one extra step to the end, which says, tell me what x is. After you've done all of that work to factor it, to get it so that you're down to simple stuff, you just need to finish it off by telling me what x is to make sure that each parenthesis, each factor is equal to 0. Hopefully I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully this video made sense to you. You are more than welcome to email me with any questions. The rest of the period is yours to work on the assignment. Good luck. Peace out.